Hey, we're Nick and Michelle Champ. Together, we're the Flipping Champs. We just finished our largest project to date. It's actually the first project that we did under an LLC, intentionally to try to make a profit. So we thought we would do just a little video to document the process on this one. So we'll jump right in. I think the first question is, what do you think was the most challenging about this house?
Sure, the most challenging. I would say the most challenging thing that we had to face with this project was just the overall layout and how we were going to essentially redesign the house. We had a lot of issues with having to change the staircase that was basically in the middle of the house, which then we had to bring everything up to code when we did that. And so when we changed the staircase, that means we had to push stuff left, we had to push it right, we had to go up. And so it just really changed the whole dynamic of the house. So I would say that would probably be the most difficult thing that we had to overcome with this project.
Yeah, it's funny because that seems like it was so long ago. And originally, when Nick said the stairs aren't up to code, I just said, well, just fix it. And in my mind, I didn't realize that that would change the layout. And once I understood that, I said, maybe we should do a spiral staircase, but we were worried about sellability. So we ended up reconfiguring the staircase, and it cut into areas of downstairs and in the loft area, and I didn't anticipate that. Of course, I think also the foundation was a bigger challenge. We knew that there were structural issues, but it ended up being a bigger project, I think, than we anticipated with that too.
Mm-hmm. Which, a lot of people, they hate the foundation issue word, but at the end of the day, the foundation is probably the most important thing, because if the foundation isn't sturdy or isn't strong, then the rest of the house is compromised. So even though we spent a lot of time, a lot of money on the foundation, the house is probably stronger than it was when it was built back in 1950. So, the house is solid as far as that goes, because we put the money and time back into the foundation. So even though that was a lot of money that we spent that we didn't initially think we were going to have to spend, now that the project's done, I'm actually glad that we did do that, because we know that the house is solid and that there shouldn't be any.
And you can probably talk more about exacts what they did with the foundation, but I think I thought we'll fix the load-bearing wall, we'll put up the LVL, the piers will go in, and whatever else they did, because we actually had to have an LVL that was a separate contractor. Then we had the helical piers, that was a separate contractor. And then there was a third contractor, and I don't even know what they did.
So one of the main issues of the house was there was an overspanning issue. So back in 1950, the codes were not really enforced back then. There wasn't really a codes. So when they built homes, they just kind of built them how they thought they should be built. But the problem is with overspanning, what that means is that there's not enough supports for the distance of the beams that are supporting the house. And so you have to kind of come in and add more supports to help hold the house up, essentially, is what it is. So the foundation company came in and they fixed the overspanning issues, and they put in more beams and more supports, and they had to pour footers. And of course, we had to get an engineering company to come in and basically essentially draw up like a site plan on, okay, this is the loads, this is what has to be done, this is how big the footers have to be, this is where you have to put supports, da 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 da. So it's more of a process than people realize maybe sometimes. But
Well, and then I was like, well, all of that's just fixed, but the floors still felt very unlevel. So then we came in before we laid the new flooring and added self leveler, which was, I think, a first for both of us to try to make the floors feel consistent throughout the house. So it wasn't just one simple little fix, it was a multi-step process to get that foundation and all of the issues that the foundation had caused corrected. So next question, what was your favorite project? What turned out to be your favorite?
My favorite project is probably the master bathroom. The tile shower and redoing all that was pretty awesome. The kitchen is probably my second favorite project, and the third favorite project would probably be the fireplace behind us. It's definitely like a...
That was a Nick design.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that isn't number one.
It's definitely a focal point. I'm really glad we decided to do that. We had an old fireplace there that really wasn't really in good shape, and we didn't want to have to deal with the chimney, and so we basically just framed it out and then put shiplap and then got a electronic fireplace insert, and it just looks real modern and sleek and clean, and has a lot of functionality. And of course in the middle you could hang the TV if you wanted to put entertainment up there. So it's definitely a favorite.
I think we had friends that came. They probably came about halfway through the project, and I think in our minds we already knew what we thought the house was going to look like, but we expected them to walk in and see what we saw in our minds, and all they saw, they came pre-drywall, and they were like, where's the door? Inside, I think the kitchen probably is my favorite. And the powder bath ended up, I think, turning out really well. The laundry room, the mud room, I had envisioned that from really early on. But I think on the exterior, the window overhangs just add so much character to the outside of the house even. What was your biggest surprise, do you think, overall?
As far as
the whole project, what didn't you expect?
Honestly, I didn't expect the house to take as long as it did to get finished. That was probably the biggest surprise. I anticipated maybe being on this project for about 7 to 8 months, but what are we at right now?
We're at a year. Well, we'll be at a year by the time the for sale sign goes in the yard. So we're right at a year.
But I would say some of the issues that we had, so when we acquired this property, it was an off-market sale, so it did not go through the MLS, and the house was literally full of junk. I mean, everything from toys to clothes to death certificates to canned goods to dead rats to, I mean, if you can dream it, it was in here. I mean, it was crazy. And so what did that take us? At least 2 weeks to just clean this thing out. I mean, we went through like 4 or 5 30 cubic yard dumpsters, just hauling debris off. And of course, every dumpster was overweight, and we got charged extra for it, because there was just so much stuff.
And what did you say? You expected 7 to 8 months in this project.
Yeah.
I think we always hear other investors say 6 months for a big project. So I was pushing for the 6-month mark. So we are, of course, a year in and over budget. But also demo day turned into like, we were demoing stuff up until 3 months before the finishes went up, or
Oh, yeah.
I mean, things that we thought that we could salvage, we were demoing, replacing windows till the bitter end. I think my biggest surprise, and I just still don't know that we fully have this figured out, but codes seems to be all over the place. And I've said codes is kind of like the Bible, and it's up to interpretation sometimes. I guess not everything's black and white. There's gray. Maybe this is in the codes book, but maybe they don't enforce it. And we found out with the plumbing inspection that things can literally change overnight. So what wasn't enforced one month might be enforced the very next month. And we had our plumbing inspection on the 31st of a month. And the very next day, if we had had the plumbing inspection done, I guess something had changed.
Yep.
So I think that's been a huge shock. This is the first project that we've ever pulled permits, and I still don't know that we fully understand that process. Yeah. So that's been a huge surprise, I think, also. So since we're talking about being over schedule and over budget, a lot of people have said, do you think that you've put too much money into the finishes? So what do you want to say about that? Do you think that we have lost money or will lose money there?
It's hard to say. You know, a lot of people see our finishes, but our main goal was to achieve the nicest look on a budget-friendly product. So we would seek out to find the cheapest flooring per dollar per square foot, but that has the best appearance or the best quality to it. And you know, we tried to put that with everything that we would purchase, whether it was buying a faucet or whether it was buying cabinets, whether it was buying light fixtures and stuff. So even though things look nice and they're rich in taste, they're not necessarily any more expensive than you could have bought at, like, say, a big box store or at a specialty light shop. So Michelle did a really good job of researching and doing price comparisons, and you know, that's a lot of work in itself, just knowing your products and knowing, you know, hey, can we get, you know, this same light, you know, $20 less for the light, and you got 4 of them, you know. So every little thing helps. Honestly, we spent more money on the foundation than we thought. That's actually what ate into our budget. And so a lot of people that see the house, they say, well, you spent too much money on all of the fixtures. Well, technically, we don't think that we did. We spent too much money on the foundation. But again, we need that foundation to be strong in supporting the house properly, because, you know, that's a safety thing. That's, you know, a big deal. I don't want to fix up a house and then have something happen to the people that are living in it because we neglected to do what should have been done. And
don't want to cut corners on quality.
Right,
for sure.
right, definitely. So,
and it was important to us to have a quality home for somebody, to create a quality home for somebody and not cut corners. And I'm all about style on a budget. So I hope that translates into sellability also. So we're making this video right before the house actually goes on the market. I think budget-wise, this is the first time that we used a contractor to sub work out. And I think we felt like we needed to do that. I think now we see that really eats into the budget. So it's really important to understand those costs up front too. I think that we didn't fully understand the process of using a contractor and subcontractors. So that's been a big lesson, and that challenged our budget also.
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
that'll be more of a discussion moving forward. That will be something I think that we understand better the next time.
Definitely want to set expectations with your contractor and say, hey, this is what we thought.
This is what we need.
This is what we need. This is what we thought
it's going to cost. How do you work?
Like,
what is your process? What are your expectations?
right.
Because if those aren't clear, then
basically lay them out all up front and try to figure all that out before you get halfway into the project and realize, like, oh, we've already shot half the budget because the general contractor is charging 20% on top of subs that he doesn't price shop on. And so, the plumber wanted 10 grand to do something when you could have found someone on your own to do it for half the price. Well, not only does it cost double the price, but then he's charging his 20% on top of that. And so those are things that you have to be aware of that really eats into your budget. So,
and we ended up managing the projects anyway, the subs, as well as the contractors that we hired out. Mm-hmm. So expectations, that's probably the biggest learning lesson in the setting expectations with contractors.
Do your homework. Research them. Get references. So,
is there a project that didn't turn out quite like you expected? Something you were disappointed in?
No, I'd say everything turned out decent. There was nothing that was really like, oh, this is terrible. I'd say everything turned out pretty good. There were definitely some struggles along the way. Anytime you have an older home, again, going back to the codes thing, as time goes on, codes are enforced for certain reasons. A lot of times it is safety, but, like doorway widths and hallway widths and things that, most people don't even think about when they walk into a house. Like, why is the doorway a certain width? Well, you've got to be able to get the refrigerator in. So, just little things like that. Or if a hallway is too narrow or it wasn't built to the standard of the code that it is today and you have fitment issues. I mean, there's so many little things that dictate how you can design a house, or, just for example, like our small bathroom that we have right next to the kitchen here. The doorway is super narrow, but that's how the house was built, and you can't really change that because there's no room to push the walls out because of the way that the house was built. And so it is, I guess, kind of just grandfathered in, like, because that's just how they built it back in 1950. And so you have to do kind of a workaround. So yeah, it's like little things like that, where, coming back to your original, did the projects turn out good, or was there something that you didn't?
Something you're disappointed
in? Yeah, I mean, I wish we could have had wider doors on certain areas, or, the hallway could have been a little wider or something like that. But again, we are working off of an existing foundation, an existing house. We can't really make things bigger sometimes. Now, the staircase, like Michelle said, it ate into some of the living room. It ate into some of the bonus room upstairs, and we were kind of disappointed about that. But as everything got finished and done, it really wasn't as big of a deal as we initially thought. Like, we were almost in tears, I think, when the staircase got finished, because
it ate into square footage.
Yeah, upstairs. It seemed like half of the upstairs bonus room just got gobbled up because of where the staircase had to have a header board above it because of load bearing issues and things like that. And with all that, like, they had to push it out, and that ate into the square footage upstairs. But now that everything's put back together, it's not as bad as we initially thought. And so,
yeah, I think every time I turned around, there was something like, and now I look back on it, it's probably little, but I was like, the staircase and the square footage, I didn't expect that to end up like that. The LVL beam ended up being really long, and of course I was seeing it in raw form, and it wasn't pretty yet. And I expected it to look like those little faux LVL beams, and it got to be a certain size to carry a certain load. But I was like, it's so big, it's gonna not fit the ambiance. But I think that we did a good job tying it, incorporating it into the design of the house.
Yeah, I remember the day that the beam got installed and Michelle walked through the door and she was like, is that what it's going to look like? I'm like, yep. She was like,
I wasn't happy that day.
it's going to be that low? I'm like, yep. Oh, she was upset.
It's big,
but
it's still big.
It turned out to be really nice. So,
well, I think you were equally disappointed. We didn't think the front door is a custom size.
mm-hmm.
We didn't think that we were going to be able to replace that door, especially, and fit it into the budget. And we got lucky and found that door at Lowe's, just sitting on the shelf, and it's a custom size. So we got really lucky. And I think you were equally disappointed when you thought we weren't going to be able to replace the front door, because that's a big deal visually.
Mm-hmm.
I think every time we ordered something online, it would come in and it just wasn't quite exactly what we thought it was going to be. And we found out that there's a million different golds. And I think when we got to the master bathroom sliding door, I had a very specific design in mind, but in the end, it didn't fit in with the budget, so I had to make a compromise on that door. So there's just little things I could go and pick out that didn't turn out exactly, but I don't think that anybody will ever realize that this wasn't meant to be. So a couple of fun questions then. Who do you think is more picky?
Probably me.
I think it's weird because I think we are picky about different things. Like you're talking about door widths. In my mind, maybe it's because I'm only 5 feet tall and things like that don't stand out to me, but it's the finishes that are really what I was picky about.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that's still off center that drives me crazy.
Yeah, we know.
But you are particular about...
Yeah, just fit and finish stuff. Big on not having sloppy work, making sure things are level and square and plumb. I use a laser level for a lot of things. Milwaukee makes it. It's a fantastic tool, whether it's hanging a door or hanging a light fixture or hanging a mirror or putting in cabinets or squaring up for flooring, for tile. I mean, almost everything can benefit from a laser. And so I'm really big on making sure things are done properly. You know, we've been through how many countless new builds. I mean, we're talking $700,000-$800,000 homes, and I will walk through these homes and my eyes just like light up and my jaw drops. I'm like, this is terrible. And it's just crazy how some of the craftsmanship of these new builds, I don't know, they just don't care. But we didn't want to build a house like that. We wanted to put this house back together, and maybe that's one of the reasons it took us a little bit longer, but we know that the house is done really well and that someone's going to be really happy with this house.
Going to pick out wood with you is probably one of my least favorite responsibilities, because we've found that wood isn't perfect, it's not straight, and at the end of the day, materials aren't going to be perfect. Things are not going to be perfect because they're built by humans still, but hopefully our quality will speak for itself. How do you really feel about making these videos?
Oh, it's fun. It's been fun. Takes me out of my comfort zone a little bit, but Michelle does a good job of making it fun for us. So we've had a lot of fun.
There's been a lot of times I'm like, I'm not going to do anything until you make this video. So the sooner you make it, the sooner we can get to work. Probably the biggest question, would you, if you had it to do over again, would you buy this house again?
Absolutely. I would.
I'm surprised about that, actually. What do you think is next? If you had to pick, if you got the pick, what would be the next project?
I think we'd like to maybe go towards multifamily, maybe duplex, quadplex, something along that lines. We'd like to maybe
Have some rental property.
have some rental properties, do the same thing, find something that's somewhat distressed, and then fix it up, build the equity up in it, and
You heard it.
yeah.
If you have multifamily, let us know. And you're willing to take on another project.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
So we haven't put the house on the market yet, so we really can't determine if this is a flip or flop. But what do you think? What's your prediction on this one?
I think we'll make a profit for sure. I don't think we're gonna lose money, knock on wood. But I don't know with the way that the market is right now if we're going to make what we initially thought we were going to make. But I guess I'm okay with that as long as we're not losing money. But again, we don't really know. The house is beautiful. It just kind of depends on what the interest rates do, and so.
I think I understand now. I went to grad school with a friend of mine, and she was planning on doing her dissertation in project management. And if you had to understand the field of work, and I think now, I don't know if we're gonna make a lot of money. I'm not sure that we don't know if it's gonna sell or not. Honestly, we may end up living in this house and renting or selling the house that we live in right now. But I think the answer to the question, I think that it's really important to have a good understanding of what you're managing. And I think if nothing else, we understand managing a large project like this now. I think I'm sure that we'll run into new things and learn new things along the way, and there's probably always going to be something a little different with each of these projects. But I think that we gained a lot of knowledge off of this project, so at least we got a good education off of this project.
Yep.
Well, that's it for today. I guess stay tuned to see what happens next. Bye.